Hello, I am Lincoln. I was thinking, which Wind Waker island would I want to live on the most? Yeah, that's it. Flight control platform. It isn't an island. Boating course. It isn't an island. 5-star islands. They're not islands, they're just a bunch of pillars in the ocean. Starbelt Archipelago. They're also just a bunch of pillars in the ocean, but this time in the shape of Orion's belt. 7-star islands. They're the same thing, but this time it's the Big Dipper. Cyclops Island. It's just boring, and it's not a place I would want to live. Like, it definitely isn't. It's got no space whatsoever. 2-Eye Island. Just a little bit more space. 3-Eye Island. Just a little bit more space. 4-Eye Island. Just a little bit more space. 5-Eye Island. Just a little bit more space. 6-Eye Island. Just a little bit more space. Rock Spire Island. While it's definitely the most developed island yet, it still doesn't have any space to build a house or something. Crescent Moon Island. Yeah, it's a crescent moon. It's not even big enough to grow any grass or goes that high up of sea level. I bet this thing goes fully submerged in water for at least 3 months a year. Fire Mountain. It's a mini dungeon. The living conditions are horrible. While the mini dungeon is really cool, I would not want to live there. Ice Ring Island. It's, once again, a mini dungeon, and the living conditions would be horrible. Yet, it's at least, like, more livable than Fire Mountain. Seeing as we just did 2 mini dungeons, probably a good time to mention, none of the enemies would be there. None of the enemies would be there. And also, I would be allowed to make whatever modifications that are, like, physically possible to the islands. Anyways, Bird's Peak Rock. It's too tall, steep, and narrow. Also, it's tied to the worst minigame in the entire game, so honestly, I wouldn't care to be associated with it regardless. Islet of Steel. While the name is awesome, it's not really an island, but give the room a floor, and I might consider it. It's better than all the ones before it, but of course, it's a ranking, so that's how things work. Great Fish Isle. Maybe in its prime, but as you see in the game, it's horrible. It's entirely destroyed. Overlook Island. Again, too tall to be reasonable to build a house on. Horseshoe Island. It's horseshoe shaped. That's for sure. Northern Triangle Island. It's really small and generic, but at least it has, you know, a space to build a house. Eastern Triangle Island. It's the same as the northern one. Southern Triangle Island. It's the same as the eastern one. Stonewatcher Island. It has a lot of space to build a house, but it doesn't have that much interesting things to do with it other than that. Hey, it's like midnight, and Earl sent me over a message saying, hey, you're stupid, and there's only 48 islands here. There's supposed to be 49. You forgot Shark Island. So yeah, here's where it would go. Yeah. It's like, so yeah, that's happening. I'm going to sleep. Thorned Fairy Island. It's a fairy fountain, but it's hard to get into. Western Fairy Island. It's a fairy fountain, but it's slightly less hard to get into. North Fairy Island. It's a fairy fountain. East Fairy Island. It's a fairy fountain. Southern Fairy Island. It's a fairy fountain. Angular Isles. It's got a really small interior. Cliff Plateau Isles. It's got a very inconvenient interior. Gale Island. I hate the idea of having to have like a parachute or something to access most rooms of my house. Also, it's designed to be a dungeon, so obviously it's not going to be structured neatly like a house. And lastly, while Moldera wouldn't be there, the Moldera Arena would be there, which just has sand sinking in towards the center. So basically I have a giant grain silo room in my house, and grain silos scare me enough. This is sand. It's like that would be horrible. Spectacle Isle is small, but I'd get to play Battleship in real life. Tingle Island is also small, but assuming I'd be moving in with Tingle, I would be completely fine with that. I would love to live there. Tower of the Gods. No, I don't think I would like this. Add in a floor and maybe. Also, just to clarify, the portal would not be here. I would not be the only one with access to visiting Hyrule. As it stands, I don't really like the idea of having to ride a boat to get from my living room to the kitchen, which also wouldn't have floors on either of them. Just kind of inconvenient, but with a little bit of renovation, it could be made nice. Mother and Child Islands. It's a fairy fountain, but big and has space to build a house. Needle Rock Isle. It's got some strange terrain. I'm not sure how easy it would be to build something on it, but it's got space. Star Isle is the complete opposite. It must be the easiest thing to build on because it's just a flat star, which ranks it pretty high because it's high above the water level, but not too high, and it's a shape and it's flat. Pawprint Isle. It has 2 caves in it, meaning there's a lot of interior to the island. As for Forest Haven, while it does have a lot of space, it seems very humid and crowded with all the Koroks and all the foresty things. But I really like it. I feel like it would be an alright place to live. Bomb Island is next. It's an island in the shape of a bomb, and it's really nice, big, and spacious. I feel like it would make for a great home. Diamond Step Island is next. This is a genuinely beautiful island. It's not much to it, but it's very pretty. Then there's the Private Oasis, which is basically the same thing, but it's already got a house there, which you can actually buy and live in the game. This might be an odd placement, but I can make Headstone Islands work. Sure, it's supposed to be the scariest area in the game, but assuming all the monsters are gone, just redecorate the place a bit and it could be a beautiful mansion. I would really enjoy living in Headstone Island from The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. I feel like I'm probably the first person to ever say that. I could say just about the same exact thing for Forsaken Fortress, but I like Forsaken Fortress a little bit more because of its verticality above the ground and its amazing layout. Now we're down to the top 3. Now if you've been paying attention, you might realize that these top 3 are literally just the most generic Wind Waker islands possible and probably the most generic answer to this question. But you got your weird out there opinion with Headstone Island. So here is my official ranking for the top 3 Wind Waker islands that I would want to live on. Number 3, Outset Island. This is probably the best opening area in any Zelda game ever. While the Great Plateau is also really good, and the Great Deku Tree does an amazing job at showing you how 3D games work, Outset Island just does this amazing job of making it apparent that it's a very beautiful place for Link and his entire family to live. Number 2 is Dragon Roost Island. Dragon Roost Island is quite clearly a really beautiful area in the game. It's got a whole dungeon inside of it, but even ignoring that, it's got an amazing village that you can live in. Not to mention just incredible aesthetics, and the people there, the Rito, are probably one of the most interesting characters in all of Zelda. They run the postal service throughout the Great Sea, and it's really cool. Number 1 has to, without a doubt, go to Windfall. because that's where like all the actual people in Wind Waker live. And even besides that, Windfall just has like this beautiful aesthetic, and it really seems like a nice place to live. But I guess it's not really about the most livable location, because obviously the most nice place to live is one of those top 3. It's about all the more interesting opinions that I've shared about this topic. So called an anticlimactic choice, I don't really think it matters that much. I don't know if I will, but maybe I'll revisit this concept with Phantom Hourglass. Who knows? But that concludes this discussion.